Hi everybody, Richard Tromans here again at Artificial Lawyer TV. Today we're talking about LUPL, the collaboration platform that has become quite well known in the last few months. Artificial Lawyer has written about it a few times. With us to tell us a bit more, to explain what it really means for law firms and the clients is Matt Pollins and Jeff Green. Jeff is the new CEO. Hi Jeff and Matt.
Hi, Richard. Morning.
Hello, Richard.
Good to have you on the show. Before we get any further, if you could just tell the audience, let's start with Jeff, because you're boss, I guess, how you got here, how you got to LUPL and what you used to do before.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having us on. And this is an exciting time for LUPL, exciting time for me. I finished a 30-year career serving the legal industry in what I like to think of as a forensic role, where I sat alongside lawyers, law firms, corporate legal departments, serving as an accounting, financial, economic expert on commercial litigation and complex regulatory investigations. So I come to LUPL with that vantage point of seeing how and understanding how legal work gets done. And I'm very new to this. I just joined at the beginning of January and off and running.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jeff. And you're based in the US, obviously.
Based in the US, in the Washington, D.C. area.
Great. Yes. Now, Matt, who's on this side of the Atlantic, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, Richard. So I'm a technology lawyer by background. I spent the first half of my career in London and the second half in Singapore, working mostly with tech companies from startups to the big sort of multinational tech players. I was a partner with CMS, which, as you know, is one of the three firms that are investing in LUPL. In the last couple of years, I found myself increasingly working on sort of legal tech and innovation stuff. And what started out as a kind of mini secondment to help drive the early incubation of LUPL has become a full-time thing. And I've been full-time on LUPL now for, I think, coming up for 2 years.
Wow. Yeah, and that's one thing I think you might say some of the users of legal tech sometimes forget actually how many years of effort goes into the product before it even gets to beta. You know, sometimes it can be 3 or 4 years before they even actually see something they can actually put their hands on. So thanks for your work on this. So let's just get into what is LUPL. Jeff or Matt, whoever wants to start on that, could you just give us a very concise idea of what is LUPL and what benefits it brings to its users?
Yeah. Shall I start us off, and Jeff, feel free to jump in if you want me to add.
Yeah, sure.
So we talk about LUPL as being an open industry platform for legal matters. Now, what that really means is we're trying to bring together all of the moving parts of a legal matter in one place. Right now, all of those different moving parts are spread around across different channels, email threads, document systems, knowledge bases. And so for the user, a lot of the friction and frankly the stress is jumping around between all these different places just to try and figure out who's doing what and how's it going across my matters. And so really with LUPL, what we're trying to do is bring together all of those moving parts of a legal matter in one place rather than them being spread around all over the place. And we do that with a very open, integration-focused approach. So, and we can talk in more detail, Richard, but for example, when it comes to documents, we actually don't store documents on LUPL, but we integrate with all of the document systems that law firms and legal departments use today, and we bring them into the workflow of a legal matter so that there's less time spent jumping around between different portals and different systems.
Got you. So I'm trying to think of a good analogy for this. I mean, I guess you're the jam in the donut, really. You're the legal tech grease between all the data and all the depositories.
I've never heard the jam in the donut or the legal tech grease. You won't find that wording on our website, I don't think, unless something changed recently. Probably good analogies. The other one that I think is a good one is the kind of universal adapter that I think you've written about in the past. We see it as really being a surface area for integrations. We're saying, this is a legal matter. These are the moving parts of a legal matter. Here's the surface area where there are good tools out there. Let's integrate with them. So the documents, or where there's good knowledge out there from players like LexisNexis and their equivalents, let's not try to replace those things. Let's just bring that into the workflow of a legal matter. So yeah, I prefer the universal adapter one,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm thinking
that
about
makes
the jam
sense.
and explainer one as well.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And Jeff, so I mean, so the idea is really that, as Matt was saying, this is this universal field, this universal adapter that allows everything to plug in: information, emails, DMSs, and frankly, tools to some degree are doing sort of a narrow part of what you're doing already. So, for example, I did a product walkthrough recently with Legatics, which is a deal management tool, and many of their selling points sound very similar to LUPL in that you can stay on top of data, who's doing what to whom, you keep a record of things. I mean, would something like that just like plug into LUPL? Would that's and then effectively, I mean, how does that work? If you're already using a a deal management tool, does that just fit into LUPL?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really is the theory and the idea behind this. You talked about jam and the donut, and we are going to figure out a way to work that into our marketing materials, notwithstanding what Matt said. I also like the universal adapter concept. We also talk about it in the context of mission control, and our goal is not to have the great technologies out there that are in use and have been adopted by customers pushed aside. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's really intended to be fabric that weaves it all together, and to use Matt's term, brings it all together in one place. So when you think back to the history of how LUPL became LUPL, the pain points that were realized were as technology in the legal space grew and began to proliferate with lots of different valuable point solutions, they didn't always work well together. They didn't always stack on top of each other nicely. Some were developed with law firms in mind, some were developed with legal departments in mind. All of them served the purpose, but there were frictions at the edges there. So the idea of LUPL is to create a mission control center where users can select the technologies that they've built into their workflows and their work streams and integrate them into a broader process.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And so, to some degree, you might say for LUPL to really reach its true potential, there has to be broad adoption. And I saw that you've got a lot of people queuing up to use it. You've got a lot of beta customers already, and of course, you've got the three law firms, CMS, Cooley, and Rajah Tan Asia, who've invested and got behind the initial developments. But I mean, how big does LUPL have to get to really reach its potential?
Let me take a stab at that, and Matt, if you wanted to add to it, please. We're using LUPL right now. We're using it internally. The beta testers are using it not only in sort of a pilot way with pilot projects, but also on active client matters. So in one sense, LUPL is a valuable tool and has been a valuable tool for those matter-specific interactions. We have a much grander vision for that, and we do think that the growth of LUPL, the expanded use of LUPL benefits. We create a little bit of a network and a community where the actual users are hands-on and are continually feeding the development and the continuous development of the product and of the platform, making it even more valuable to them, removing some of those pain points that we talked about.
Got you. So, but Matt, are we looking at eventually, because obviously LUPL is, as well as being invested in by the law firms, is in itself technically a private company. It has presumably corporate goals of its own. I mean, was the idea to get, like the top 50 AmLaw 100, the top 50 UK 100, the FTSE 100, etc. I mean, is that the goal, to bring all of these people together?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've genuinely been blown away by the level of interest. I think you'll have seen yesterday we announced, I think we've got over 500 companies on our beta waitlist, and that includes very small law firms in relatively small jurisdictions through to a significant number of the AmLaw 100 UK 100, some very large legal departments. We honestly didn't really expect that level of interest this early in what we're doing. And to your question, you know, I think, does the whole world have to be on it tomorrow for it to be valuable? I think no. There's obviously value in it. Even if just, you know, you and I, Richard, were working on a legal matter together, there would be value right off the bat. But also we're aware of the fact that for each new user who comes onto the platform, like any platform business, and we genuinely are a platform business, that adds to the value of our platform. It becomes more interesting for other people to come on. It also becomes more interesting for the other tech companies who we're working with on integrations, who kind of see this as, you know, another route to market, another way to demonstrate the value of their tools. It becomes more valuable to them as well. So that's really why one of our short-term goals is around adoption. And you'll have seen that in our hiring as well, announced yesterday. We've hired pretty heavily on the onboarding, adoption, customer success side of things, because that's really one of our key short-term goals.
Gotcha. So let's just focus back on the tech just briefly. So let's say, for example, let's take a very simple example. Corporate is buying another company, company B. There's a couple of law firms at least involved. There's a virtual data room, there's emails going back and forth. Maybe there's a deal management tool in there. There's probably a document review tool being used for due diligence, and maybe some other tools as well. Maybe they're using HiQ to pass documents around. There's all kinds of stuff. You know, it's just like this massive activity, massive tech applications. Just talk us through. So how does LUPL play in this kind of maelstrom of activity?
Yeah. So the first part of that is meeting the user where they are. So let's say that on the transaction, one of the teams is living in Microsoft Teams, let's say. We actually have an integration with Microsoft Teams already with a deeper one coming out in the next couple of months. That will effectively surface all of the LUPL functionality, so that all of LUPL's kind of legal project management functionality through Microsoft Teams. So you could have one deal team in Teams, you could have another one in Slack, and someone else living in email. And all of LUPL's functionality is accessible to people where they are. So that's a key starting point, is meet people where they are rather than force them to learn a whole new set of behaviors, because that's just too hard. And then in terms of some of the other stuff you talked about, the teams could set up a matter on the LUPL platform. And again, think of a matter as being really a toolkit, bringing together all those moving parts. So for the documents, let's say it's, I don't know, CMS in the UK, they could connect iManage, which, let's say that's their DMS that they might use. They could connect their iManage system and use that almost like the system of record for the documents. When it comes to things like, and tell me, Richard, if this gets a bit too demo, if I'm going on.
No, go for it.
Just want to thoroughly answer the question. Let's say that people are looking for a precedent checklist of due diligence questions in a transaction of this type. We have a feature called the Knowledge Hub, which is basically an open library of workflow templates provided by people like LexisNexis, where you can actually pull down content and generate actionable steps for the transaction from their knowledge. Or maybe one of the firms has their own internal checklist that they want to use. And again, we help them to kind of pull that down from our open knowledge library. And it goes on from there, right? So integrations with some of the other systems that you've just talked about, and integrations with very specific point solutions. You know, maybe someone wants to run a comparison on one of the documents. We integrate with comparison tools as well, but in the workflow of the matter. So Richard adds a new document, show me what changed, rather than me having to sort of figure out integrations with my own IT system. It's already right there in the workflow of the matter. So you can think of it as all these moving parts, and we're just trying to bring them together in one place. And the vision is really bring your own system, so people can be using different things. You're in Slack, I'm in Teams, Jeff's in email, and we can still all work together.
Gotcha. And will there be, I mean, will there be a literal visual dashboard to, I suppose, for people who are not sort of thinking in terms of data, but want to see, something they can touch and look at, is there going to be literally a dashboard and they'll see all the various points coming in, they'll see the data flowing in, they'll see the documents, and there'll be something to look at? Or is it not like that? And in fact, you'll be operating off whatever the law firms have already. You're just connecting the bits.
No, so there is a dashboard. Yeah, there is a dashboard, and that dashboard gives you the kind of bird's eye view, if you like, across all of your matters, so you can see how everything is tracking. And then from that dashboard, you can dig down a level into the specifics of a single matter, so you can see how that particular matter is tracking and what's going on in that matter. But again, you can either do that through our own user interface, or if you just, there are a lot of people living in teams. I think we've got 120 million daily active users. We don't want to pull people out of teams if they want to live in teams. And so that's why we've got this deep Microsoft Teams integration to surface that kind of dashboard through things like tabs, bots, and the like within Microsoft Teams.
Gotcha. Sounds fascinating. Well, running out of time, so let's just go back to Jeff briefly. So what happens next? So you've got some more funding. That's really going to help. You've got a great sort of queue of people lined up to take part and test and so forth. What happens now?
Well, as you know, we've just announced the additional investment round from our investor group. We're very excited about that. And our focus right now is as we work toward the end of our beta testing process and into a broader launch, we'll be focused on the organizations that have been participants up to this point, and a phased approach to onboarding those customers. That's going to be a very active process of working with them hand in hand on all of their needs around onboarding and user adoption, providing them with the toolkits that they need to be successful, helping them understand use cases and the like. So that's certainly an area of focus. And along the way, we're going to continue actively the development process. Since the beta launch back in March of 2020, we've conducted about 30 sprints, development sprints. We've added hundreds of features along the way. We have an active backlog of other pipeline features and other adds to the platform itself. And that's an ongoing process, and it's fed by the user experience, the customers who are actively using this, identifying those pain points, identifying the features that will be valuable to create better outcomes for them. So that's ongoing. The other thing is we are excited about some of the partnerships that have emerged, not only with technology providers and knowledge providers. We also announced recently the memorandum of understanding that we now have in place with the Ministry of Law in Singapore, whereby they'll rely upon LUPL to serve as the platform that will help them in their mission to continue the digitalization of the legal sector in Singapore. So that public partnership is hopefully a template for us going forward for other type partnerships, but a very exciting thing going on at LUPL right now.
Interesting, and congratulations. Singapore, one of the countries that's really pushing from the government downwards for digital change in the law. Just last couple of things, and they connect to sort of money and sort of corporate structures. So I mean, LUPL was created by 3 law firms, effectively, but does LUPL have, you might say, its own identity? Is LUPL going to be a corporate that makes its own decisions and grows in its own way, or is it effectively managed, controlled, directed by those 3 big law firms? If you see what I mean, is LUPL eventually going to go off and leave the creche?
Well, maybe I can take a crack at that, and Matt, please add. But yeah, we're very fortunate to have been incubated by those 3 law firms. And at the same time, those law firms did so much right in terms of building a coalition and building a collaborative development process. I think you're aware, but our working group that surrounds LUPL right now includes not only those 3 firms, but several other very significant firms, as well as an advisory board that's built of 16 very active legal professionals from corporate legal departments, multinational blue chip companies to high growth technology companies. And the collective input that we have received here crosses over geographies all over the world, crosses over sectors of the economy, includes small law departments, larger law departments. So the community surrounding LUPL is quite important. And to your point, LUPL does and will stand on its own as a corporate entity, but values the partnerships that we have that I just mentioned.
Gotcha.
And Matt, do you have anything to add to that?
Actually, Matt, on that point, I mean, will you be taking external investors who are not part of a legal market? So, a big VC fund comes along and says, "Oh, this looks pretty cool. Can I play as well?" I mean, what's...
Yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate to be well funded, as you know. So we don't have any immediate funding requirements. We've had a surprising amount of interest from VCs and others, private equity, in what we're doing. But as I say, no rush on that front. Really, our focus for now is user adoption and onboarding. We'll think about our options on that front probably sometime towards the end of this year.
Yeah, you've got cash to burn. Actually, just the last two questions then, just briefly. How many staff do you have effectively as part of LUPL?
Yeah, Jeff, do you want me to take this one?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we have over 50 people actively involved at the moment. Now that is a mixture of contractors and staff. We will by the end of this year have about 75 people in total. The bulk of that is on the development and engineering and the R&D side of things. But over the course of this year, as you've just heard, a huge emphasis is going to be on adoption, onboarding, customer success. So that's really where the nexus is going to come from. Is really starting to staff up that team, and very international, spread around between. I think we've got California all the way through to Singapore, which does make calls a little challenging. Hence, it's dark.
Yeah, well, I can empathise. I can empathise with that experience. So the very last thing, which is money, we always have to have a question about money. If let's say I'm a GC or I'm the managing partner of a law firm, and I've heard about this, and I think, all right, okay, let's do it. How much is this going to set me back?
Yeah. So again, Jeff, I'll take this one. Feel free to jump in. So the model for LUPL is going to be premium SaaS licensing model. On the legal department side, somewhat weighted towards free, and on the law firm side, somewhat more weighted towards premium. But actually, it will be possible for people to get started in LUPL in a kind of premium tier. And in terms of how we're stress testing that model, in the same way as we've kind of co-developed the functionality, we're also testing the pricing. So we've literally sat down with dozens of GCs, partners in law firms, CIOs and others, and sort of started to sketch out what would pricing look like. And that process is ongoing. So closer to the time of our public launch, be making a few more announcements on that front.
Okay, so just to clarify, when you said freemium, not premium.
Freemium.
You said freemium. I thought you said freemium. Okay, so initially, if GCs are watching, they can, well, obviously you've got a bit of a backlog, but when there is space, they'll be able to join at least initially on a type of freemium model, and then that will evolve.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Well, look, that's all we've got time for, but thank you very much, Matt. Thank you very much, Jeff. I think it's really good to see law firms and in-house legal teams coming together, working together. It's one of the criticisms often leveled at the commercial legal sector. The lawyers don't work together well. They're always competing. They're always worried about, proprietary IP and all this kind of stuff. So it's really, really good to see you all working together to solve a common problem. So well done. And we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.